redbus.in. Please welcome on stage Nanda Kumar S., co-founder, Perfint Healthcare Private Limited. And to moderate this session, please welcome Sudhir Sethi, founder and chairman, IDG Ventures India Advisors. The session is now in progress.
Thank you. Can you hear me at the back? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on a very, very difficult pre-lunch session. We hope to keep your attention with this august audience, and the topic being disruption in technologies which we are seeing today. I'm going to request to start each of the panelists to take 30 to 45 seconds to just introduce themselves, and then we'll go on to the main session. Funny?
Sure.
This is on.
That's not like that. Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fani. I'm a co-founder, CEO of redbus.in. We sell bus tickets on internet. Thank you.
Ashok?
Good morning. My name is Ashok Ramaswamy. I've been with Delphi for 25 years. I used to be the president and managing director of Delphi India until about 3 months ago. I have now repatriated to US, and I'll be talking about disruptive technologies in the automotive domain. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nanda Kumar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Perfint Healthcare. We are a medical equipment company. We're focused on oncology diagnosis and therapy. We'll talk about it a little later. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. So effectively, we have 3 speakers. Fani will speak about disruption in business models and technologies as far as the consumer segment is concerned. Ashok in the automotive sector, and Nand Kumar in the medical devices sector. What I'd like to do is each presentation is slotted for 15 minutes, and subsequent to that we'll have a Q&A which is open. I'd like to take the first maybe 5 to 7 minutes in a presentation which explains an investor's point of view on how we view technology. Can you put the first presentation on, please? Let me start with a few myths. And as an investor, the myths which we find in the market space are, number 1, there is no technology innovation in India, especially in early stage or startup companies. The second myth which we find in the market space is there are no product companies from India. And we hear this constantly in the market space. The third myth is there is nobody to fund early stage companies where disruption, innovation, especially in high risk areas like products takes place. A lot of the capital goes into services. The fourth myth is that the reason why this happens is because investors obviously have not made money on these areas and no exits have taken place. The fifth is that technology only means IT. Historically, it has. And last but not the least is it's a bad time to start a company. We believe no, it's a great time to start a company. So I'm going to address these 6 myths and give you our view as investors as to how we look at them today. Myth number 1, no technology innovation takes place in India. What we've seen in the market space is reality is different. We see a tremendous amount of technology innovation taking place, and especially in the last 3 years. As a firm, we have seen over 3,000 companies since 2007. And admittedly, about 1/3 are service companies, but 30% are software product companies. We've seen about 70 medical devices companies in the country. We've seen about 84, well, not about 84, precisely 84 aerospace companies in the country. as such. And these are product companies. They're not, CAD CAM service companies or CAD 2D, 3D service companies. They are making real products in the market space for Indian and international customers. And the areas which we've seen them, apart from what I mentioned, is telecommunication, energy, the whole engineering space, as I mentioned, medical devices, security is a very large area where we are seeing more and more products coming out from the domestic market. And one of the big reasons is that there is some funding available. So we as a fund truly believe that the myth number one, it may not have changed completely, but the trend, what we see in the market space in the last 3 to 4 years, is a very, very encouraging trend in terms of ground reality of innovation, disruptive technologies, products, IPs, and patents which are coming up from Indian entrepreneurs and Indian companies, all based in India. The next one is no product companies from India. And I will take the liberty of sharing with you our own portfolio, because we have invested in almost 60% of our portfolio in product companies. Manthan, BI Analytics, retail, it's a product company operating in 16 countries worldwide and moved in the last 6 months to an average license fee of about $1 million. And 70% to 80% of their revenue comes only from product companies, only from license fees, and a little bit from the cloud-based computing. iCreate, similar company, BI Analytics, but in the banking and financial market space, but focusing on emerging markets. One of the things which we saw was that Indian companies are extremely innovative in business models and going out into global markets. One of the reasons was that the recession hit and they found that US was not a good place to go to. So emerging markets started paying us more from a need perspective, from a growth perspective. And so Middle East, South Africa, well, we did have Egypt and Sudan up till about 3 months back. Now that market has gone away. But emerging markets is something which is very interesting right now. Perfint, we had the pleasure of investing in Perfint with Nand Kumar. He'll speak more about it, but very deep patents, IPs, product already installed in about 40 customers as far as India is concerned, and now going international. Connectem, energy management. Apalia, mobile television, the only company which serves real-time handset-based television with 500,000 consumers, targeting to be about 2 million in the next 12 to 14 months. And this is something which, I remember when we invested in it, very few people believed in it. And 3D Stock, which is 3D mobile interactive gifting on the handset. And in fact, today is a very important day for one of our companies, 3D Stock. They've just hit 1 million consumers as far as the product is concerned. So we've seen that it is possible, but I think as investors we need to realize that we need to invest in pre-revenue companies, and that takes some doing. It is a high-risk business, there's no question about it. But there are product companies. NASSCOM set up a product panel about, I think, 3 years back or 2 years back, and during their survey they identified, if my memory serves me right, 496 software product companies in the country who had already emerged and were doing from not too well to very good. Last year, just the software product companies alone from India gave a revenue of about $1 billion. That is only early stage and software product companies as such. But the number of companies in that space which had crossed a $25 million revenue was only 6. But there's a lot of smaller companies there. Next myth, and I'm very proud to say that the myth is that angel and venture investor money is not available. It is increasingly becoming more and more available. We have seen the number of angel investors grow threefold in the last 4 years. And these are people who have invested in technology companies. There are angel networks which are formed, and for us as a venture investors, it's a very important criteria that people who know the space, who know the technology, invest, and then they de-risk that for larger pools of capital to come in, where people like us come in. Just to give you some numbers, in the 2004 to 2009 period, technology companies in India absorbed $2.5 billion worth of capital. and if my memory serves me right, the number of companies who absorbed this was 625. We expect this between 2010 to 2015 to grow to a $7.5 billion number. Interestingly, 40% of that is in Bangalore, 20% is in Delhi, and 10% is Hyderabad. So this sort of a small curve and a straight line between Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Delhi absorbs 70% of technology capital in India overall. And that's out of the $7.5 billion, almost $5 billion as such. But Bangalore alone is a $3 billion investment cycle. So if anybody comes to me and says venture capital or angel investments is not available, then I think it's a big question mark. It is available, especially in Bangalore. I've spoken about the sectors earlier as such. No venture-backed exits. Again, to go back to 2004 to 2009 period, 114 venture-backed exits took place in the space of technology. 70 of them we have data on, and invested capital return was 4.6. That means if $1 was invested, investors made 4.6 times that on those 70 companies, which is a very healthy average in a 5.5-year time frame, which is the average holding time frame for venture investors. Interestingly, mergers and acquisitions forms 2/3 of exits. So obviously, when it's an early stage company where technology is being developed, going public is a 10-year cycle or an 8-year cycle as such. But what was heartening to know was there was one company which exit was at 50 times the investment, one at 30 and one at 20. This is very different from US, where you have many companies who return much higher numbers. But I think the trajectory is in the right direction, which is what encourages investors like us. I think the second last myth is that technology is not, technology is just IT. It's not. The sectors mentioned there are emerging, and we are seeing more and more companies in these spaces. Energy, telecommunication, the whole mobile space, medical devices, the whole transportation space, the number of emerging companies which we are seeing in aerospace, rail, automotive, and in fact we just saw a company which is managing the engine room of ships based in actually Koramangala, Bangalore as such, and they're through machine-to-machine communication. So very interesting sectors in which more and more products are coming up based on the background of the people who are starting these companies. It's a great time to start a new company, and the reason for that is summarized here. There is enough money available. Team building is getting easier and easier. A lot of people want to work in smaller companies and not work in a behemoth with 100,000 people where you don't get noticed as such. We are finding that it is easier now to get people who come in that, but with one caveat: the performance issues become much more severe, because if you have 10,000 people in a company, you ride with the wave, you ride with the brand up to a point. If you have only 10 people in the company and all are doing very critical jobs, performance becomes a very big issue. So we found it's easy to get people, but we've also found that technology people and business people who come into smaller companies, the scalability and the risk-taking appetite is also required is much higher. I think one of the bigger things which we notice younger companies innovating with more disruptive technologies is because the domestic market is growing much more rapid. This we have seen in the last 2 years. Indian customers have started to pay. I remember even as 4 years back, Indian customers never used to pay. Leave aside hardware product, but software product of course had to be free as such. I think Indian customers have started to pay. They've started not to pay international pricing. They started to pay Indian pricing, which enables innovation, because what happens is that Indian entrepreneurs are forced to do product pricing which is lower than international. And if the product works in India, it actually does work outside the country and works much more efficiently. So the way we see it is, if there is a world-class product with capital deployment being less, pricing being less, it can become extremely disruptive in developed and other emerging markets, because for a Western company to match that is virtually impossible. And of course, I mentioned exits are strong, and of course, domestic IPO market is very active. Thank you very much. We will take questions after all the presentations. Thank you very much. I'm going to request Ashok to make the next presentation.